Today we're going to talk about why you should study intercultural communication. And as we talk about this, we're going to discuss the 6 imperatives that your textbook authors offer for studying intercultural interaction. Now, I know you've all already read the chapter, so I don't need to think I'm just going to review the material in the chapter. While I am going to talk about those 6 imperatives, I'm going to connect them to more current events and also offer you some additional information that wasn't in your textbook. So you're going to want to have your notebooks out and take notes as I move through this lecture. So to begin, what's the first reason why we decide to study intercultural communication? Well, we should study intercultural interaction because we have to understand how individuals of different genders and ages, ethnicities, races, languages, religions, sexual orientations. We want to understand how individuals from those different backgrounds understand their world so that we can promote a place where peaceful interaction is the norm. So as people have those differing cultural backgrounds, they look at and experience the world in different ways. If we don't recognize and accept the validity of the way that they see the world, what we'll see occurring is conflict, and that conflict is going to prevent people from finding connectivity and fully engaging in intercultural interaction. So an example of where intercultural differences led to conflict happened recently when there were shootings at 2 Jewish community centers in Overland Park, Kansas. So in this situation, the shooter's hatred for individuals of the Jewish faith led him to engage in a shooting rampage at both a synagogue and a Jewish retirement home over Passover weekend. So the shooter was unable to accept that individuals with different cultural backgrounds were okay. He was unable to accept individuals of the Jewish faith, and his hatred for these people led him to commit these horrific crimes. So while it's unlikely that intercultural communication by itself would solve all the world's problems, learning how to recognize the validity of different cultures and different ways of looking at the world can help remind people to be open to listening to different perspectives and listening to ideas that differ from their own. So while intercultural communication is not a cure-all, it is a good place to start. We might also opt to study intercultural communication because economically our world is becoming more interdependent. And as we become more interdependent, we see more global marketplaces that require individuals working within those marketplaces to know how to interact with people from diverse backgrounds so that both they and their organizations can be successful. So in that initial talk there, I use the term interdependent. And when I talk about interdependence, what I'm talking about is a state of mutual influence. So in interdependent relationships, the behavior of one individual affects the other person in the relationship. As world economies have become more interdependent, this connection that we see has resulted in what we call globalization, which is the increasing tendency towards connections in media, in business, in culture, in pop culture, in all of these different realms. We see a greater connectivity between individuals of different cultures and different backgrounds. So U.S. American corporations have found that if they want to compete in this global marketplace, they need to be able to buy and sell their goods within those global situations. So we'll see Burger King, McDonald's, Starbucks, all of these organizations that we recognize from our day-to-day lives, we see them in overseas contexts as well. So in the pictures, you might not be able to read that it's Burger King, but you can recognize the logo and you know which organization and what types of products you can buy within those organizations. So not only have U.S. companies decided to open up shop in global marketplaces, but U.S. corporations have also moved some of their operations overseas in order to take advantage of the lower labor costs that are associated with working overseas. When we move people overseas, what ends up happening is individuals from U.S. organizations or from other countries need to interact with one another in order to make business deals and to figure out how work is going to get done. This requires that organizations either hire or have in-house cross-cultural trainers that help individuals or employees who are going to be going overseas understand what those different cultures look like so that they can better interact in those intercultural settings. So the U.S. notoriously does a very poor job of interacting with, or of teaching their employees how to interact with individuals in different cultures, whereas individuals from some cultures like Japan will spend many, many years learning what U.S. American culture is like. They'll learn to speak the language so that they can come to the United States and be effective communicators and effectively interact with individuals and do the best that they can for their organization. So sometimes when you see those intercultural snafus like in the picture on your screen, you can cause ill will between people from different cultures. You can cause mistrust. And in a lot of circumstances, it can result in missed opportunities for your organization. So organizations investing in cross-cultural trainers is beneficial because then people can better understand how to go into those global marketplaces and interact effectively. While we talked a lot about international marketplaces, I do want to highlight that there are economic imperatives, domestic economic imperatives for studying intercultural communication. So as we look at the decision-making table, we see that this is a very diverse table. We have men and women, we have people of different cultural backgrounds, we have people of different ages, and they're all interacting in hopes of coming up with a great decision to the problems that their organization is facing. This is a far superior way of approaching problem solving than we would see if organizations were more homogenous. So if everyone looked like the gentleman in the middle, so they were middle-aged men who likely were college educated, likely had Christian backgrounds, when people are all coming with the same perspective, we don't really think about creative solutions to problems. We don't think about creative ways to market our products or creative markets in which to introduce those products. And so that's one of the great benefits we have of increased diversity in our domestic organizations, is as we get people from different backgrounds in the organizations and we empower them to make decisions and be present when marketing decisions and problem-solving decisions are made, their perspectives can help the organization come up with new and better ways of doing things that wouldn't have been possible had that individual not come to the table willing and ready to share their lived experiences. A third reason to study intercultural communication is because technology has enabled individuals to connect with very diverse others, and technology enables us to connect with people around the world relatively easily. And so one of the things we've seen that has come out of this increased ability to interact with people is a new phenomenon called hashtag activism. So in response to the kidnapping of close to 250 Nigerian schoolgirls by the terrorist group Boko Haram, people from around the world began tweeting their support for the girls using the hashtag #BringBackOurGirls. The goal of this hashtag activism was to get the Nigerian officials who refused to negotiate with terrorists to negotiate with the Boko Haram and ensure the safe return of the girls. While this situation has not yet resolved itself, so we do not know yet if it's a happy or an unhappy ending to the story, what we do know is that technological advances have enabled a larger group of people to be aware of this story. So had this not started trending on Twitter, and when it began trending on Twitter, began trending worldwide on Twitter, people around the world might not have become aware of this story, and it might have just been swept under the rug and not caught national attention. But because people could so readily access Twitter and engage in these discussions online, we've been able to bring more attention to this issue, which hopefully will help bring the girls back home safely. While these are some very positive benefits to hashtag activism or to using technology to interact interculturally, I also want to caution you that there can be negative side effects associated with interacting with people from other cultures. So when we look at 2012 data, we see that in China, China has the most internet users out of any country. So in terms of a number of people, the largest number of people on the internet are Chinese individuals. However, those individuals only represent 42% of the population. So if you're interacting online, you might be able to easily find someone from China to interact with because there are many individuals online that you might come to find on blogs, discussion boards, Facebook, etc. But as you come to interact with these individuals, What you might not necessarily realize is that the lived experiences they're talking about, the backgrounds that they're discussing with you, aren't necessarily representative of all Chinese individuals. So the individuals that you're talking to are likely individuals who have some type of privilege, right? They have access to the money they need to buy the technology to connect with the internet, to buy the internet access. They might have been individuals who are educated, so they're interacting with you because they can get internet access on their college campuses. So in many ways, the people you are interacting with are individuals from a privileged class. So if you learn about their lived experiences and you come to conceptualize all Chinese people as being part of this privileged class, that can be really problematic for you as you attempt to engage the cultures in which you're a part. So technology can also be negative because we might not necessarily recognize that the people we're talking to might be people that have a greater access to privilege than the common people in a country or in a culture. Because access to technology is absolutely a privilege or a privileged status. The UN has recognized that access to the internet is so important for individuals in the world that they want to stop considering it a privilege that some people can get if they can afford it, and rather it should be considered a right that all citizens of the world should have access to. So their goal is to enhance internet access and enhance connectivity so that people all around the world can encounter and absorb the information that we can find in our more globalized society. So truly, internet access enables access to knowledge, which is a very powerful thing for people across the world.